welcome to the DNX podcast. My name is Sylvia Chrisman. I am your host, and I'm here today with my friend Erin Claire Jones, who specializes in human design. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
So excited that we get a chance to actually do this in person. Mm-hmm. I've known you for a couple of years now. I've definitely hung out with you in Bali before. We're here in New York City right now, and yeah, this is so exciting that we got to talk about this. So Erin, tell me a little bit about tell me and our audience, of course, a little bit about yourself and what drew you to human design.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So what drew me to human design? I was introduced to human design many years ago, and when it was first introduced to me, it just hit me so immediately. I was like, somebody read my chart and read my design, and it just resonated so immediately as truth. And I think that I've explored a lot of different modalities, and part of what really distinguishes human design is how tactical and grounded it is. It's all around, and we'll get into it, but it's all around how we're designed to make decisions and communicate. And so I was told two pieces of information immediately around that I was really designed to wait for an invitation and really give myself time before jumping into anything, that I started really implementing the next day. And so human design really has just aligned me more to my path than ever before, mostly by just giving me permission to be a very unique expression of myself rather than feeling pressure to be anything but that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So of all the modalities that you started, right? So tell me a little bit about your path. How did you actually get there? It wasn't the first thing you discovered and you said, "Ooh, this resonates with me."
No, it wasn't. I was I feel like yoga was the doorway, and then I started exploring Reiki and just started exploring a lot of different modalities. Now I'm also studying Kundalini. I'm just a learner. I love exploring these systems that get me sort of closer to myself and how I work. And I think, I was looking at some of those other assessment tools out there, like Myers-Briggs or StrengthsFinder, and they were super interesting because they gave me information that felt really good about myself. But those systems are based on who we think we are. We're answering questions based on who we aspire to be or who we are in that moment. And it changes over time. And so with human design, all you need is somebody's exact time, date, and place of birth. And so the idea is that it's really revealing the very unconscious and conscious aspects of you. It's not evolving over time. It's basically your imprint. And so when I just sort of saw that map, it really it just felt like a level of information that I'd never been able to access before. And I truly feel like human design is sort of the first system of its kind.
Perfect. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your own journey. What was, what made it the most interesting modality, and How did it resonate show up for you in your life? Totally.
Just an example is, it was funny actually how I was first introduced to it. I met somebody at a party, mm-hmm. and we were super drawn, as we do. And he looked at my design immediately and was like, we're meant to make money together. And I was like, what? And it was this whole thing, but he just started running up all these things about how I worked, and I kind of just put it aside. But I reconnected with him 6 months later, and we went a lot deeper into it. We ended up actually working together. And there were just these aspects. Like I said, I think that, for instance, my specific design is what we call in human design a projector. So for those people, they're really meant to be the advisors and the guides. They're not here to do all the doing, to do all the work. And the most important thing for them is to really wait for recognition and an invitation into something. And so I realized that one, all my opportunities come to me totally randomly and through a very strange invitation. It's never a job application. They're you need to do this. I'm going to invite you in. And two, I realized that I'm best used not by doing all the work. I get very depleted. I get very exhausted, but really sort of by managing and guiding the ship. And so I think that it really just it was such a sense of relief when I learned that, because I think that I've been in a lot of environments where I felt like I had to do, and I was just so depleted. And so it really, I say this in a lot of my sessions, but human design isn't about changing who we are. It's about giving ourselves full permission to be who we've always been, and just really being able to step into that. And so I think that when I really learned about human design, how it's changed my path, is it's really allowed me to sit back in a different way, because the idea is that it's really about bringing us into a lot more flow and a lot less resistance. So instead of initiating everything, I just allowed myself to be invited in. Instead of making decisions spontaneously and in a hurry and under all sorts of pressure, I just gave myself time. I slept on things. I allowed myself to get super clear. And something I also always say with human design is how we enter things is everything. And so human design has really allowed me to sort of enter my relationships, my partnerships, my job opportunities so thoughtfully in a way that feels very correct for me.
Mm. It's fascinating. What are the different personality types? Yeah.
So in human design, when you look at those other systems, there might be like 9 different types or like 16 different types. In human design, there are like 2 billion different designs. Oh. Like everyone is wired up so differently. It's like quite literally called the science of differentiation. And so, but at the very highest level, there are 4 different types. And then you sort of drill into all of the different specifics. But those different types there, the first type is generators. Mm-hmm. Generators are about 70% of the population. And they're really the builders, the creators, the doers. They have this sort of creative, consistent access to energy to get things done. And the most important thing for them is that they love the work that they do and that it's deeply satisfying, or else they're going to get super depleted. Then 20% of the population are projectors, and that's me. Do you know what you are?
I think I'm a generator.
You're a generator, cool. Yeah. 20% of the population are projectors, and they don't have that same consistent access to energy. They're really sensitive to energy, and they end up really being sort of advisors and guides and managers, consultants, coaches, and so they're sort of on the ground doing all the work. They're going to burn themselves out. And then 9% of the population are what we call manifestors. And these are kind of like these people that are really just here to like initiate and get things started. They don't always have the energy to get things done, but they're here to like get the ball rolling. And then there's 1% of the population that are super unique beings, and these are what we call reflectors. And these are people that actually really just like sort of reflect back the well-being of an environment. They're sort of like best used at the center of a community, and if you just like observe them, they're going to sort of reflect back what's happening around them.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah, it's wild. The system is like endlessly fascinating.
How do you apply that to businesses and teams?
Totally. And so just for a little bit of context, I think that my application of human design is really around bringing it into companies and leadership. And the reason I do that is that human design, you can get sort of very caught in the esoteric piece of it. And like my mission is really to make it as accessible as possible. And so I work with leaders, so really helping them sort of understand how they're uniquely designed to manage their team, how they're uniquely designed to lead. Often they're feeling pressure to be a lot of things that they're not. So like how they best communicate, how they can really consistently make decisions they can trust, like what are the shadows that are getting them off track, like what are their strengths. And then on another level, you can start to look at partnerships. And so you can start to look at what happens when 2 people uniquely come together. Mm-hmm. Like what's the emotional dynamic? What are the areas in which they're dominating each other, compromising each other? What's their communication dynamic? And so whether it's like co-founders or somebody you're managing, it just like really helps people bring a lot of clarity about how they can work more effectively and harmoniously. And then the third application is really working with teams. And it's the same thing. It's like, how can you really ensure that this team is working together in the best possible way? Like, how can they really communicate with each other? It's not about communicating to every person in the same way. How can we uniquely communicate to them in a way that they can hear? And how do they make decisions? How can you honor that process? And so again, it's like a lot of people are feeling pressure to be things they're not. And so the system is really just revealing how different we all are and giving us the tools to really honor that in like our relationships, our teams, all of that. But the first step is us getting aligned ourselves.
Right.
So, if you like learn everyone else's design and then just act on that and don't respect your own, then it's going to do nothing. Mm-hmm. And so I sort of always require that as a first step.
What's been the biggest lesson for you on this journey?
The biggest lesson? I think that I think it's been so revealing, because now that I have like so much clarity around the things that are like what we call the not self, there's like the true self and the not self, and the not self is often when we're making decisions from our head or we're feeling all these sorts of pressures. It's just been really revealing to watch the times that I'm really operating so out of alignment. I don't think I had that full picture before. I would just like feel like something was off, but now I can be like, wow, like one, I was like feeling this pressure to prove myself, or like I was making decisions way too quickly. I was initiating things. Like it just like has given me so many tools to be like, okay, like I understand what got me here and why I'm so off track, and like I know how to come back into alignment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's just been and it was so interesting. Like I said, my way of making decisions is super slow. I'm not designed to make decisions in a hurry. And I was so nervous when I found that out, because I was like, oh my God, what if like opportunities leave because I'm too slow? But it's been so powerful for me to like ask for more time from people, and it really just builds respect. And then like more opportunities come out once I do that. So it's been a lesson in like seeing all those shadows, and also in like really fully surrendering to this process. I think with human design, what I really emphasize to people is that it's not a belief system. We're not asking you to believe anything. It's crazy that all you need is your exact time, date, and place of birth. But like it's really an empirical system. It's here for you to like test and play with. And so I just encourage people to start experimenting with it and see what they find. And it's only through that experimentation they'll understand like, wow, like life can flow in a much different way once I'm in alignment with my unique design.
I'm fascinated by human design. I really am. So if somebody's listening to this and they want to know what their design is, what's the first step here?
Totally. So they can look up their design on humandesignamerica.com. And that's just like that first step. You can see this sort of body graph is what we call it. It's not going to make a whole lot of sense to you, but you can just like get a little taste. I would definitely recommend if people are interested in diving deeper to sort of have a session with somebody and like go deeper into their own design, because again, there's a lot of information out there, but what's most important is you really sort of diving deep into how you work individually. Yeah.
If somebody wanted to find you, do you work virtually or do you not?
I do work virtually. Yeah, I know. I work with a lot of people in New York, but I work with people honestly everywhere, Australia, all over the world. And so my website is Erin, Erin Claire, Claire, Jones, JONES.com. And all my different offerings are on there. So yeah, I work with people everywhere. You know, and again, my offerings, I think something I've been experimenting with recently is like really doing group readings. So really doing sessions where I'm sort of looking at a lot of different people's designs at once. And it's been so profound because again, I think what's so amazing about human design is that it's so applied. It's like we're making decisions every single day. So it's like, how can we make decisions as ourselves in every moment? And so it's been cool to be in groups and be like, oh wow, like I operate this way and all these people operate so differently. It just gives people like a much bigger picture.
So if you run a remote team and you see that there are people running into communication problems all the time because, you know, it's hard. Teams in person are hard. Running remote teams can be even more difficult.
Totally.
How would you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like, you know, just one quick anecdote, like there was a partnership that I was working with and they sort of had these tensions that would just come up and they'd be there for like 3 weeks. They just couldn't resolve it. And once we really sat down with them and looked at like how different they were and like how they each need to be communicated to and like how they each made decisions, like it basically allowed them to resolve those tensions within a conversation. It just gave them a language. And so profound to watch that happen. So I think with remote teams, it's a similar thing where it's really about for each person understanding how they work and how at a very high level, how each person on their team works so they can really respect that. And like, I'm only talking about the highest level of information you can get. Like you can go so deep into like, okay, this person needs to like be managed on like the day to day. This person like actually like just give them a task and like they're gonna do it. And so like you just can get such specific tactical information about how you can really best use the people in your team, because like what I see out there right now is that there are people that find things that work for themselves and then they assume that's going to work for everyone else. And human design is kind of the opposite of that. It's like, you know what, we're all super unique beings, like let's find ways to respect that both in how we operate and how the people around us operate, you know. And so I think that it's really about what I would recommend for those teams is really going deep into the individual designs of the people there so you can really sort of use your team to the best of your ability. You know, and I found that I've been in teams where like I've been so not used in the right way and it's been exhausting, and then teams where I've like really been used in like a very unique way and like it just allows me to show up and perform so much better.
So let's just say you're on a team, you're not used, you get your human design, you do reading with you, and then you realize that you really are not utilized to the best of your ability in your job at all. What to do?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think with a lot of personal development, it's like if you're really going to go into it, you kind of have to be willing to, like, let go of the things that aren't right for you. You know, like, I worked with a number of partnerships where it honestly became so immediately clear that, like, it just wasn't the right thing. You know, and that was part of why they were coming to us, to sort of get that validated. And so, like, there's a lot of information in human design that you can really pull on to be like, is this the right place for me? Is this the right thing for me? And so sometimes you might be like, oh, yeah, this is the right place, but I'm in the wrong position. Or you might be like, this is just straight up the wrong place and I'm in the wrong position. And so, like, I just think when you start to go down this path of, like, actually authentically, like, working to transform yourself and your team, like, you have to be willing to sort of accept all the different iterations that might take.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which is hard. So if you're trying to like control your team and like But I also think that what I've discovered for leaders is like it's honestly such an amazing investment you can make in your people, because you're basically like when you're helping them understand how they work, it's both allowing them to perform better at work, but it's like bringing them into alignment in every part of their lives. And that's what I say, like human design, like our sort of business is kind of like the gateway. Like, yeah, let's make you like more efficient, more productive as a leader. But once you start doing that, let's like make you better in your relationships, in your life, and just like ensure you're making decisions as yourself in every part of your life. And so I think as a leader, making that kind of investment in your team is so profound, and they'll feel that.
Yeah. We spend about, what, like 80% of our time at work? It's about that, right? I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's the highest percentage of the time spent in our lives is at work. So investing in that sort of knowledge for your work life will automatically translate into your personal life, and the other way around.
100%. You know, and I do. It's like we're relating to people all day long at work, you know, right. And it's like there's a lot of miscommunication, a lot of things. So it really is like that's where my focus is. But like the best part is that it translates everywhere else. Yeah,
I've come across human design many years ago, probably like 6-7 years ago.
Yeah,
in Thailand through a friend of mine who was practicing that, and I think what I was missing, what I see with a lot of people is missing is that integration into, you know, building that bridge back to life. Because going somewhere, developing yourself, you know, let's say you don't have the opportunity to develop this at work, so you seek it out and develop it on your own. And many people leave their jobs, leave their lives because they look for something new and they find out more about themselves, but how do they build a bridge back to life? That's the difficult thing. And I think what's so unique about your approach here is that you have taken a very valuable modality and you've built that bridge back to life. And you're actually building it in both directions. Just so beautiful.
100%, you know, and I think that like it's been interesting. I've been doing sessions with a lot of people recently that have had human design readings before, but it was so much information and they were like, it was so esoteric that they didn't know what to do with it. And so I just think that like there's a lot of information that can be found in human design, but at the highest level, it's like literally the most tactical, grounded system in terms of giving people real tools to apply. And so I think that's why for me it's different than any other modality I've seen. Again, like it's so fun to get information about yourself and all these different systems, but it's like, okay, now what? And you know, and like again, human design at its core is like, how are we designed to make decisions as ourselves? How are we designed to communicate? How are we designed to process information? Here are the tools that can support you in getting back into that. Yeah.
And build a life in which you can thrive. Right?
100%.
Because all that knowledge is so useful. It's useful, but it's also useless if you don't know how to build it into a real life, into your job, into your relationships.
Absolutely, you know, and I think that there's a lot of modalities out there that it's like people are getting like all these realizations about themselves. They're getting so excited. It's like, that's amazing. But like the next step is, again, how do we integrate that into every single decision that we make? And it's hard. It's hard when we like access this thing and then we are like, okay, but like now I have to go to work every day. You know, so it really is about integrating this into every single decision that you make so you can sort of show up in that highest expression of yourself every day, every moment, at work, at home.
Do you have any tips for people that may have discovered this, really want to integrate it into their lives, but don't have an environment that is receptive to it? Not that they're in the wrong place, but how do you start this conversation? Do you walk into a room and say, listen, I think this job is great. I'm in the perfect place. I'm just not utilized the right way because human design tells me so.
Oh my God, I've definitely had so many people who are like, God, I just wish my boss knew this. You know, I think that like, it's hard to convince people of things, you know, but I think that like, I would recommend as a first step, just going deep into your own design, because like, when you start to align with it, people are going to feel that. And it's like that example I gave earlier when I was like, okay, in terms of making decisions, I have to sleep on things. I have to give myself time. And so I just started to implement that and ask the people around me to support that without even mentioning human design, but mostly being like, okay, like this thing feels very good, but I want to make sure that I'm like 100%. So like, I'm going to get back to you in 2 days after I sleep on it, you know? And they're just like, okay. And so like, and it really has built some respect. And so I think it is about like really just diving deep into it yourself, really experimenting with it. And then like, you'll know when the time is right, when people are ready to hear it. And that's another huge piece of human design. I have a component of my design where it's like, I have all these like knowings and ideas, but like if I deliver them at the wrong time before people are ready to hear them, it just won't land. Mm-hmm. And so it's been really learning to be a witness, waiting for that invitation. And they're like, what are you exploring? What's going on? And I'm like, bam. And then they're ready to hear it. And then like change can really happen.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. It's so fun.
Yeah. I love listening to you, and I hope people really love listening to you too. We're definitely going to put the information of where to get your human design, how to find Erin in the show notes below the podcast, so that people can get back in touch with you. And we're definitely going to have you back at some point, because I can't wait to hear more. But we're at the end of our time, so thank you so much.
Of course.
And for everyone listening, just one more thing. If you get a chance, go to dnxpodcast.com, subscribe to our podcast, and leave us a review. If you want to reach out and have questions for us directly, don't be shy. We're always happy to answer questions, and we will do podcasts based on the questions that you send in. That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your ongoing support. Before I leave you, I want to invite you into my world. Please go check out dnxcommunity.com. This is where you'll find the other nomads and evaders of convention. We'll see you there. And if you're interested in our English-speaking events, go and check out dnxglobal.com. You'll find the link below this podcast as well. And if you have time, one last favor, please go to iTunes, look for Sylvia Chrisman or look for the DNX podcast and leave a review. Thank you so much, lovely people, and I'll talk to you next time.